Welcome to 5 Good Minutes.
You're listening to today's inspirational message, looking at the Messianic Psalms with Brady Randall.
Can you think of something you really wanted that turned out to be something that left you empty in the end? Like the kid who thinks they want to eat junk food and candy, only to find out that it makes them sick. And not that this happened recently in my own household, that some child would have eaten a whole box of extra cheddar cheese goldfish, only to find out that said goldfish were expelled from his body just a few hours later. Not that I know anything about that. Well, today in Psalm 16, God warns of us chasing after things that we think will be fulfilling, but in the end that they're actually futile. In verse 2, David says, "I say of the holy people who are in the land, they are the noble ones in whom is all my delight." In other words, David says that what ultimately gives him pleasure and delight are godly people who also delight in God. For David, it is good to be with God's people. And maybe you felt this way, that you have some friends who you'd call your fun friends, people that just like to have a good time. But when something heavy comes up or difficult in your own life, maybe they're not so fun anymore. Or they don't want to be burdened with that kind of stuff. And I think what David is getting at here is there's a difference in the community of faith. People that are for you and with you in thick and thin. People that have the ability to encourage you and pray for you and keep you accountable. People who ultimately find their joy and delight in the Lord. And if you want that or you don't have that currently, I want to encourage you to seek after that. To ask God that He might provide that kind of community, genuine community. Because Psalm 16 indicates that friendships that aren't in and of the Lord, they turn out to be futile in the end. So he continues in verse 4, "Those who run after other gods will suffer more and more. I will not pour out libations of blood to such gods or take up their names on my lips." And I think that he's saying very clearly that there is a foolishness to running after things other than God. Things that will ultimately leave you sorrowful in the end. And the problem with these kind of things that we run after is they don't look like they will bring sorrow. They look like they'll bring pleasure. They look like they'll be good for us. But this is just exactly the scheme of Satan. Satan is very good at showing us the bait, but hiding the hook. It was J.C. Ryle who said, "Sin will rarely present itself to us in its true colors, saying, 'Hey, I'm your deadly enemy, and I want to ruin you forever in hell.' Oh no. No, rather sin comes to us like Judas with a kiss, with an outstretched hand and flattering words." How many times have you or someone that you know run after things that they thought they would make them happy, whether it be money or power or sex or fame, only to leave them empty? I think that's probably why about a third of lottery winners end up going broke. I remember hearing a 60 Minutes interview with quarterback Tom Brady after he won 3 Super Bowls. He was still in his 20s. He's on top of the world, and yet he admits that something was still missing. He said this, "There's got to be more than this. This can't be all that it's cracked up to be. What else is there for me?" And the interviewer asks, "Well, what's the answer?" And Brady says, "I wish that I knew." He said, "Well, he loves being a quarterback, but there's got to be more than this. There are other parts of him that he's still trying to find." And hearing that was a reminder to me of what this portion of Psalm 16 is saying, that anything other than Christ will ultimately let you down. I have the misfortune of being a passionate Pittsburgh sports fan, and it's tough to be a Pittsburgh sports fan these days. I get my hopes up at the beginning of every season, and every one of the teams, they break my heart. But every sports team you root for breaks your heart unless they win the championship. And even if they win the championship, they still have to do it again next year. Jesus asks, in a very convicting way, I might add, in Matthew 16:26, "What good is it for someone to gain the whole world and yet forfeit their soul?" If you've come to a place of realization that it's futile to chase after those things that will only leave you empty in the end, then you're invited to say with David, I will not pour out libations, or in other words, I will not participate in such a ceremony. And so what could that look like for you today? If you were to make that your prayer, this world has nothing for me, but just give me Jesus now and forever.
Thanks for joining us here today. There's a lot of great content to explore on Orchard Hill Plus and on the Orchard Hill main feed from the weekend. Have a great day.